Welcome to The Spectrum by ABA Centers of America. I'm your host, Dr. Ted Bender, clinical psychologist and mental health advocate. Please visit our website at abacenters.com and call us at 877-699-1222 to learn more. Today, I'm speaking with the brilliant producer, Sonia Rockwell, about her documentary, Understanding Autism. Sonia, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk autism today.
Sonia, you're the co-founder and president of Healing Humanity Productions, which tells stories that inspire positive social impact in the world. I'd love to dive into your mission in advocating for autism awareness today by asking, what inspired you to create the documentary Understanding Autism?
Yes, thank you for asking. Well, my niece Ava has profound autism. She's 10 years old. She's nonverbal, and she's still in diapers, and it's challenging. So there's so much to learn about autism. There's so much we don't know. And as a family, we've come together to learn a lot. And I felt that with knowledge comes power. So it was my duty to spread awareness on autism. That's what inspired me.
Ava, 10 years old. I can certainly see how that would kind of lead you down this path. And today, we're seeing rates of autism diagnosis in 1 in 36 kids nationwide in this country. So I want to thank you for producing this film. I know a lot of people in the ABA space and then the treatment space in autism are really excited for it and waiting to see it come out. We're all very excited to see the final product.
Yeah, thank you. And ABA has been such a major support in Ava's development. I am so excited that you are part of the ABA community. It's been prolific in her life. So yes, I'm here to advocate ABA and everything in support of autism awareness in that area.
Can you tell, that's interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about how ABA has helped her? I'm just curious what aspects of it worked well and some of the changes that she's been able to make?
Yeah, the therapists that are trained, my niece is in Kona, Hawaii, and there isn't a lot of help out there, but the help that's out there is ABA therapy. And, the repetitions have been so helpful. She's almost being able to potty herself. It started once a week and then it was twice a week. Now it might be once every 2 days, maybe once a day. She's being able to do it by herself. We'll find her in the bathrooms all by herself. And we're excited about it. Also, her iPad, they've provided an iPad for her, and this is how she can communicate. She communicates with us. If she wants grapes, if she wants water, Ava's in there and she really wants to talk and communicate, and this is helping her. ABA is helping her.
What is she passionate about?
Oh, she loves The Little Mermaid.
The new one or the old one?
The original okay. Little Mermaid. She's seen the new one, but there's something about the original Ariel that really gets her excited. She loves music. She loves to dance. She's such a sweet girl, really.
She sounds wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that the ABA therapy has been helping her and will continue to help her grow into the future. I was curious, having an extensive career in acting and film yourself, how has that influenced your approach to documentary filmmaking, especially in sensitive areas like the one that you've decided to take on, like autism and other disabilities?
I'll be honest, this is the first documentary that I've ever dived into. And so it was a new experience for me. However, it was a very humbling experience because you're not reading lines. This isn't pretend. These are people's lives. This is people's communities. It's so intense and profound when you go into the deep desires, the deep struggles, the deep atmosphere of these families. And they're so willing to expose themselves because they're so desperate for help. They're so desperate to be heard. And I feel very honored that I've had the chance with Scott Steindorf with Stone Village to to encompass their voice and to be their voice so that they can be heard.
You know, I've been working in the mental health field for a long time, and I've had the privilege of working with some exceptional people, therapists, mental health workers, nurses, doctors, and I've always told them, you know, in leadership that it takes a really special kind of person to willingly enter into the pain of a stranger. You know, and in a lot of ways, that's kind of what you're doing. You know, you've dove into this world to see their successes and triumphs, but also the struggles and the pains and the difficulties that go with it. So I applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you. It's a very humbling experience and very beautiful. It's real life connections. It's love that connects people, and it's the willingness to understand and the willingness to listen and be heard. And I feel very proud and honored to be a part of this community.
Absolutely. And then, you know, just the awareness that it's helping to spread too, because that's just so crucial. I spent many years working in the addiction industry, and it's the same thing. You know, we just need a tremendous amount of increased awareness around, you know, what it means to suffer from an addiction, what it means to suffer from a mental health disorder, what it means to have autism. And the more that we teach the public, the better we're going to be able to help people who are struggling and help people reach, you know, their best selves.
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, it wasn't just having my family in the documentary just because of, you know, nepotism. Oh, I have a niece that's autistic and I want to showcase her. There's something very special that my family did in Hawaii that I wanted to expose because I thought it was so profound in what they were doing. So, I mean, if you imagine you have an autistic child, you don't know what autism is, you live on an island in the middle of the Pacific, in the middle of nowhere. They're in Hawaii. You know, they don't have the full support of all their family. We live on the mainland, and they don't have very many doctors. In fact, Ava has to fly to Oahu, which is another island, just to see a doctor to get a check mark on her box to fly back to Kona, the big island, telling them, okay, we need more therapy when there really isn't enough therapists. It is so difficult. And so it really requires a community. And what my brother and my sister-in-law did is on their own, because they were so desperate for help and understanding, they reached out to their community and continued to do that, saying, hey, you know, we have an autistic child. We don't know much about autism. Does anyone have any information? And it is so incredible. From when we started this documentary, I want to say actually before we started the documentary, there was about 41 families that they had gathered together that had created this community and support group for each other. It started as a support group. By the time we were done with this documentary, there were 341 families on the island that are now encompassed into this community to support each other. And on top of that, they turned it into a nonprofit. And they went out into the local communities. So they would go to, you know, the surf shops and say, hey, listen, you know, we've got a bunch of children in this community that would love to come surfing, but, you know, you aren't educated on how to cater to their needs. They have special needs. Can we teach you? And these communities, you know, open their doors with open arms. And that's when I said, let's get the cameras out there. Let's get this on camera. So one of the days we went out there, we had 51 lifeguards who volunteered their time, and they took out all these children. They were teaching them how to surf and boogie board for the entire day. It was so beautiful. And the most touching part about, you know, Hawaii and autism is there's something about water that, you know, children and adults on the spectrum resonate with. It's very calming. They feel very connected with nature. There's something very beautiful about it. And we got to get that on camera. We have these kids who are temperamental and having tantrums, and they were sleeping on the surfboards. It was so adorable. They were literally coming. Their parents were like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen this before. What is happening? He's so calm and happy. And it was so beautiful. So in saying that, it really requires a community and a culture of acceptance, inclusion, and accommodation. So
Yes,
we were just, very, very excited that they started this nonprofit, Autism Moms of Kona, which dads too. And And it's just one of the projects that we've come across, and that one's in Hawaii. It's
You know,
beautiful.
if that doesn't prove the point of the immediacy of awareness, you know, I don't know what does. You know, you put this together and like just spread the awareness in that community. Before you know it, you have a huge support group in an area that really lacks resources. So I mean, that just kind of proves the point on a smaller scale. And imagine what we can do on the larger scale. And to your other point about availability of resources, years ago, when I worked in the nonprofit hospital sectors, I was trying to work with the Easter Seals Foundation in our area because the wait list for an assessment for autism spectrum disorder was 9 months.
Wow.
9 months just for the assessment, not talking about treatment, just to get assessed. One of the many things that ABE Centers has done is significantly reduce that wait time and the time to treatment to a matter of weeks in many cases. And then, you know, another thing you mentioned just in general is, you know, resources in the United States. They estimate that we only have about a third of the therapists that we need to treat this population right now, which is really just detrimental and scary to me. And that's why, you know, I'm putting my energy into same thing you're doing, you know, helping to spread awareness and to, you know, kind of create these communities and educate people on the needs of this population.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, you know, just watching my family go through it myself. It's so funny. I feel like life is very serendipitous. The day I found out I booked a role that I did for Nat Geo, it was a piloted TV show. I was playing Jenny McCarthy. And for that week prior, I was learning everything I could about Jenny McCarthy, aside from learning how she talks and how she walks and the expressions she makes. I dove even deeper, and she's a huge advocate for autism. Her son's autistic. And I was learning a lot about autism that week. I didn't even know what autism was. And the day I booked the job was the day I got the phone call. My brother told me, Ava's autistic. You know, we just got our test results back. And I have to say, because my family was so confused, it was such a blessing that I actually had a lot of information to give them. Oh. And it was incredible. So, I mean, who knows? You know, the way things happen, this is Hollywood and then this is healthcare, but somehow they're co-aligned. It was pretty incredible. So, you know, it was nice. It was comforting that we had information, that I had information because I'd been reading so many books.
Yeah, you know, and having worked in the mental health field as long as I have now, you know, we in the mental health field, we take this for granted all the time. We just kind of assume that people know what depression is or anxiety is or autism is. But really many people don't know, and they don't understand it, and they don't know the needs, and they don't know the features. And just like I was speaking about with addiction, it's the same thing. We got to do a lot of work to spread awareness, because once we do that, we see the results, right? And your example of that, of what happened in Hawaii is really powerful.
Yeah, the thing is, you know, my co-founder of Understanding Autism, you know, we did this together with Stone Village Television. When we started talking about my niece, and what was the first project we were going to do, we knew we wanted to do something in healthcare. And autism was definitely the passion project initially. He shared with me, Sonia, you know, this is crazy. He said, I have been putting millions of dollars into research for autism for the last 15 years. And there's just so much we don't know.
True.
And, you know, our documentary doesn't tell us everything because, you know, it still is a question mark. We don't know everything, but hoping that after people watch this documentary, they do understand a little bit more about autism and they have more compassion and love for those people who, you know, are on the spectrum, because bullying is a pretty big thing. And I'm watching it even with my niece and nephews at school, and it's hard. It's really hard. So just, I think teaching the next generation of children to be kind and compassionate and have understanding will help raise awareness for the next generation.
Do you think this film, part of your strategy will be to expose, you know, middle school, high school kind of viewers to help them understand?
Oh yeah, 100%. And one of the other one of the other nonprofits that I've been working closely with is Focus on Ability.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ABA Centers of America.
And they focus on highlighting the abilities of those with disabilities. And the reason that I decided that I chose that I really wanted to work with this nonprofit is because they actually take action. There was a story about a little boy who was 7 years old, and he started getting homeschooled because he was bullied so much at his school because he had autism, among other disabilities, and he was treated very poorly by his peers. And his sibling made a short little video and submitted it to Focus on Ability short film festival. And when these executives and these judges and these people saw this video, they said, oh, we're doing something about this. And they actually took action. So they went to this little boy's school and, they had an assembly. They got all the kids together and they aired his video. And everyone in the entire school got to see this homemade short film that this boy's sibling made for him in advocating his abilities against his disabilities. And you know what? They welcomed him back to school with open arms. He's the cool kid now. Those kids love him. And it just goes to show when you raise awareness and you do take action and you do care, you put an arm around that child or that adult and you advocate for them, things change. Yes. And, that's one of the things I told my business partner was when we started getting into film, I said, you cannot change policy without changing hearts and minds first. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're here to do.
Well said. I completely agree with you. I like the term you mentioned, focus on abilities, because there are some pretty incredible abilities that I've seen in specials and just in the clip of, the teaser trailer for your film. I mean, just some amazing talent in there as well that we're looking forward to seeing.
Yes, Scott Steindorf himself, our director, our producer, he produced Lincoln Lawyer, Love and the Life of Cholera. He was just up for 7 Emmys here in Hollywood on the last Emmy circuit last year for a show called Station 11 on HBO. He is brilliant, very creative, and he himself struggles on the spectrum. And, his children as well, they're all very successful in their fields. And they're on the spectrum. There's Elon Musk, there's absolute geniuses, but then also, there's ones like people like my niece Ava. She can't talk and she really struggles. And so, as long as people understand and they have support across the board, it's just so important.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there and just for education purposes, we call it a spectrum disorder because there are varying degrees of difficulty. You can have very mild issues to very severe needing full-time care. And that's why we classify it as a spectrum because it can vary in degrees of intensity and difficulty. Going back to the documentary again, I'm curious, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced while making this and how did you overcome them?
I have to admit that was a personal challenge. When I was on set, I was interviewing my family. And of course, this happens with film and television as well, film mostly. People never see what hits the cutting room floor, they say. I booked a movie, but my part was cut out. And so you don't really know what happened. The same thing happens in documentaries because you get hundreds of hours of footage and, you're trying to make something under 2 hours. And it cut to my core some questions that I asked my family and some of their responses. Of course, they were so loving and so understanding. My brother's a saint. The patience and the love that anyone who has any child or family member with disabilities and expressing that is so beautiful. I was crying every day Scott was crying every day. The lighting guy, the grip guy, everybody behind the camera was crying every day because it was just so beautiful. And we call it autism love. There's something very special and different, and it's almost like a lifelong innocence, and it's very magical. But that was challenging in that I did not see that coming. And seeing it in other families, and trying not to cry was challenging.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I got you. And so you had to interview members of your own family in the documentary.
Yes. And other families. But yes, I interviewed my brother and my parents. Gotcha. And, I'd ask them questions about their challenges. And that was challenging to hear because there are things that we don't talk about. We don't complain because we just spread love. But when you ask someone about their challenges and you hear an honest, truthful answer, it's challenging to hear at times because it is the truth. And it's why we're here. It's why we're spreading awareness. It's why we're, their nonprofit is getting more trained ABA therapists. They actually got 12 in the last 2 months, which Nice. They had slim to none before that. It's why they're focusing on a group housing solution for when children are older. What happens when their parents aren't around anymore. So they're creating a community which provides solutions for care providers and families and therapists. So having all these people invested in quality care is a great solution for a comfortable transition for those on the spectrum. And the inevitable passing of parents or relatives and doing it while they're young. So it's really exciting. I've been helping them with that as well.
When you were interviewing families, did you hear a lot of common difficulties? And if so, what were some of the most common difficulties that they face as a family?
The most common difficulties that I heard was bullying at school.
Really?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's so sad. That was the biggest thing that I heard. And, statistics say that 1 in 3 adults or children with autism will attempt suicide in their lifetime. And I really believe it because it's just so unfortunate when people are not aware of what autism is and do not have that compassion and understanding. People are cruel, and it's a shame that, this is 2024 now that I'm even saying that. It's terrible. And this is just why we just need to raise awareness and advocate for those who cannot speak on their own behalf or who don't have a voice and be that voice for them.
Yeah. I've spoken in other areas, podcasts, talked to other people on other people's podcasts about the relationship between social media and bullying these days. And I was a kid. I got bullied when I was in school sometimes, and it's not fun. And that was, 30 years ago. I can't imagine what bullying is really like in today's world, where it's with the involvement of social media. Like if I got into a fight on the playground, like I went home and it was over. You know what I mean? Until the next day, maybe. But these days, it's 24 hours now. It follows you everywhere. So I find it interesting to hear that was the number one challenge. And it's also just absolutely heartbreaking. Kids can be very cruel. Then you kind of also demonstrated too that they can be compassionate and they can change their minds and they can see things differently. Again, through the awareness, like you mentioned, that short clip showing it at the school changed the whole perspective.
Yeah, which is why I think it's so important. This is why we're using storytelling. Is why if I feel like film and television is so influential. It's in every single home. Every child is exposed to Netflix or whatever it is that's on TV, whether it's on a children's account or whether it's on an adult account. And we don't know always what our kids are exposed to. Yes. So I think it's important that we use storytelling to continue to expose awareness and hope and love. And, I try to stay away from Saw movies and things like that. But anything that, we're influencing people's hearts and minds. So I think that that's with knowledge comes power. And as a storyteller, as a producer, you have to take on that responsibility and think about, as my co-founder would say, hematonesia, what are the unintended consequences? What are the unintended consequences of this film we're going to make, or this documentary we're going to make? How are we going to influence people? And that's very, very important that we take that into consideration for every project that we choose.
Yeah, that really just leads me to my next thought is, since you've released the film, and I know it's not widespread yet for everybody to see, but what kind of response have you received from the public? And has it met your expectations in terms of impact or anything you've learned from the response of the public?
Lots of tears. Everybody loves to cry when they watch this, so their hearts just grow. The response has been so overwhelmingly wonderful. And I have to say, from the community with people with disabilities, that response is the most important to me. And I have to say, it's so overwhelming and welcoming in that community. We've had people come up to us like, wow, I really feel heard. I didn't think other families went through what I went through, or I thought my situation was bad. And like, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to these other families. And we had this one guy stand up. We had our one of our premieres at the Newport Beach Film Festival. And they were asking questions in the audience, and he stood up, and he himself, I think he's a Grammy winner in music or something. And he's on the spectrum. And he said, I've never seen a film, a documentary, anything where I have ever felt heard until today. And he just said, thank you. And it made me cry because that's how badly they want to feel heard and say, hey, this is what's going on, and be compassionate and understand us and help us. And so it was just so beautiful. And it was done in a very safe way. And I think it's great that people feel heard.
That's great. That's what I was going to ask next was, what has been the response of the autism community? And it seems like so far it's been very positive.
Yes, very, very positive. So that made us feel really good because, it could have gone the other way.
Sure. Right. Another thing I'm interested in is, I know you worked with people who have experience with autism or maybe on the spectrum, but did you collaborate with experts in the field to make the documentary? Like, one thing that I'm always kind of cognizant about as I've been working on this podcast and immersing myself in the literature is the, phraseology and the terms that I use, and trying to be as, sensitive as I can. Tell me a little bit about how you collaborated with experts in the field and what you did to kind of ensure accuracy and sensitivity.
Yeah, I mean, we worked with some of the best doctors in the world. That was mainly through Scott because he himself is autistic. And being in Hollywood, he knows so many people. Sacha Baron Cohen, as you know from Borat, his cousin is a very famous doctor in the UK, and he's actually in our documentary. We had doctors from Harvard. The Mayo Clinic. It was like all over, and it was only very high, prolific professionals that we worked with because we wanted to get the best information that we could. Of course, when opinions are made, people have their own opinions, but when it came down to data and doctors, we tried to use the best.
That's excellent. I'm just curious, having access to all that, all those, the brilliant people and minds in the field, did they talk at all, even just on the side of like what the future of autism research is, or any kind of exciting, groundbreaking studies?
There isn't a lot. There's a lot of studies that are in motion, but not all the data is out yet. Not everything is out yet. There's a lot of groundbreaking things that have already come out, even as of recently. Like animals, and if you're on the spectrum and you very connect with animals, really help calm. But not as of yet. not as of yet. There's still a lot of tests, and it's, all we can just do our best to try to understand it more.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ABA Centers of America.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you've done this work, are you thinking about or planning any future projects or initiatives that are related to autism or other neurological conditions?
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. We have an animation and a children's story that we're toying with, and yeah, if I could continue to raise awareness in other areas of storytelling, absolutely. We have so many projects on our plate. We're not sure which ones, will happen in what order, but we definitely have our eyes on more. Yes.
Excellent. That's great.
Yeah.
In your opinion and your experience with making this film, how has media representation of autism kind of changed over the years from what you've seen, from what you've learned, from what you've heard from the people that you worked with, and also in your opinion, what more needs to be done with that aspect?
I think the awareness is getting out there, inclusivity even more. One of the, myself being in the Hollywood industry here at our company, I would like to instill, and we're working on instilling opportunities and mentorships with those with disabilities and autism as well, to to provide inclusion. We would like to provide mentorship, education, things like that. It's funny, Scott put out an article, I think it was in Deadline, pre-COVID, and it said, sorry for swearing. He said, "I'm not an asshole, I'm autistic." And everybody called him. I mean, everybody. We've got this other TV show we're doing, and Ethan Hawke wants to jump on board because I think he did some project with autism. He worked with Matthew McConaughey. He's like, "What do you need from me?" I mean, it's just, I think people are compassionate. It's literally just getting the word out there and saying, "Hey, this is what this is, and let's be nice to each other."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can't just assume everybody knows what autism is or addiction is or heart disease is. We can't just assume everybody knows what it is. And most people have heard the word autism, but I bet $1 million if we walked out on, New York City street right now and just started interviewing people and say, "Hey, tell me what autism is. What are the symptoms? What are the challenges?" We probably get, pretty poor answers, right? So yeah. I echo your sentiment on that. I'm doing everything I can personally to carry that mission as well. And ABA Centers of America is blasting forward with groundbreaking ability to see patients quickly, excellent individual one-on-one care, excellent therapists, excellent RBTs, and just doing fantastic work, which I'm so proud to be able to work with them on that, because the need in this country is great. The number of diagnosed kids is growing, and we do not have enough providers to handle the volume. Simple as that. Sonia, how do you see the role of technology evolving in the field of autism education and awareness?
Technology is going to be profound in assisting autism and awareness. One reason I see is because how Ava has an iPad that speaks for her, because she can't get the words out. But with ABA therapy, we have been able to communicate with her through this iPad. So it's set up. It's got a little toilet on it. If she needs to go potty, she clicks on the toilet and it says toilet, toilet, which we know, oh, let's take Ava to the bathroom. If she's thirsty and she clicks on the button and it says water or grapes or yogurt. And she's learning pretty quickly which button means what. And I don't know if you know who Elizabeth Bonkers is.
Don't.
Okay, Elizabeth Bonkers. She, I think she's in her 20s now, but like Ava, she's nonverbal, and she wrote a book, and she's actually in our documentary. She was the valedictorian at her college, and she has the most views of any valedictorian in the world. I want to say She has 4 billion views. It's incredible. She was so bullied at her elementary school and her high school. And I don't even want to repeat the words that that her principal said, it hurts. It hurts. He said, the retard can't be the valedictorian.
Yeah, I saw that in the trailer.
Yeah. And they sued the school for her educational rights. And she learned, through ABA, she got the iPad. She was able to type, communicate. She wrote a book. She's had, I don't even know, hundreds of stories and poems and published. She has her own book published, and she's a rock star, total rock star. And just showing her alone in the success that she's had, and she can't even speak, it gave us hope. And she also told us on her own iPad, she said, you can teach Ava this. She'll be fine. She's in there. She wants to communicate, and she will communicate with you. I mean, she was an angel and such an inspiration. So, I mean, this is where we start. We've got acceptance and inclusion to blossom and support.
So with Ava, you said she's 10 years old?
Yes.
When did she start using the iPad to communicate? At what age?
Only a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what that must have been like for parents and the family. Like, it's almost like 9 years into it, you're starting to communicate. How did she communicate before that? I mean, what was the kind of method of communication?
She was really cute. I mean, she still does it if she doesn't use her iPad, but if you're sitting with her, or she'll walk up to you and she'll grab your hand and she'll walk you over to the refrigerator and put your hand on the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need you to open the refrigerator for me. So you open the refrigerator and she goes for the yogurt herself. She knows what she wants, but she would grab our hand and guide us and take us and walk us around for what she wanted.
So technology in a way has given her voice.
That's right. Yeah, technology has definitely given her her voice. And I think that's only the beginning. A lot of people are afraid of AI, but I'd say don't be afraid of it. Understand it, because in a lot of ways it's going to help us.
Absolutely. And how old was she when she started getting ABA therapy?
I want to say it was maybe 4 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. There weren't any ABA therapists. They didn't have the resources on the island.
So just again, highlighting the absolute need for therapists in this country and increased training, and also the need for immediate and quick assessments, right? Because we know that the younger we get them assessed and the younger we get them in treatment, the better the long-term outcomes.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
A few more questions for you, Sonia. I'm curious a little bit about your humanitarian work in Africa. How did that experience influence your perspective on, autism or other social issues? Tell us a little bit about that.
I came back from Africa with an empty suitcase. It's just from the bottom to the top. They have an enormous amount of lack of resources. Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to autism, we're talking about the most basic resources: schools, food, water. And we were starting with helping communities and literally tribes to be self-sufficient in those areas. So yeah, it was pretty profound. It was pretty profound, because I thought, wow, at such the basic level, we haven't even gotten into, autism and disabilities, just because these communities themselves need to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining. And that was where we started, with square one.
Yeah. You're incredible. These stories are amazing. The work you're doing is mind-blowing and awe-inspiring. So thank you for everything you're doing for humanity and for people on the spectrum, and bringing awareness to the public. It's really quite profound.
I do it with love.
With Healing Humanity Productions, what is your vision for the future? And particularly in its role in creating societal impact and awareness, where do you see it going from here?
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ABA Centers of America.
I have very big ideas. Healing Humanity Productions is only going to grow and raise awareness on other either social issues, whether it's climate change, healthcare, across many spectrums. There's many verticals that we are building out. And because we have so much support, and that goes along with, we just want to be impactful. You know, it's going to be the impact vertical of our overall company where we're making a difference. You know, even just with autism, 50% of the proceeds we're putting back into research for autism and for families that need help. So it's not about making money. You know, we have a business, so we've got to keep the business growing and pay the bills, and we'd like to scale. However, we're hoping that, you know, when we show that we are that concerned and that we're making things to actually make a difference and provide that, we're hoping that, you know, it shows that when we talk the talk, we also walk.
Absolutely. Now, you know, the big question, back to your documentary, when can I see it? When can the public view it? When's it going to be released? Tell me all about it.
Well, we're actually, since our Newport Beach Film Festival, PBS saw it, and we're negotiating a deal to air in April for
Great.
Autism Awareness Month. We're very excited. Until then, it's hush hush. You know, we're not allowed to show it. We're not allowed.
I know.
Just little snippets. Yeah. But until then, and of course, I'll be keeping the community updated with our profiles on social media, on Instagram and things like that.
You want to tell people where they can go to keep up to date and see about release dates?
Yeah, I'll have it on my social media at Sonia Rockwell on Instagram, on Facebook. Scott Steindorf, he is the producer and director from Stone Village Television, and he has been blasting it on his LinkedIn. Actually, I just got LinkedIn too, not too long ago. Still learning how to use it on our LinkedIns, and his handle is at Scott Steindorf. You know, we're trying to create a supportive community for the most vulnerable demographic, and you are going to hear our voices loud.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for taking the time to speak on The Spectrum by ABA Centers of America. To our audience, check out the trailer of Understanding Autism on YouTube. Also, to learn more about how ABA Centers of America can help you, please visit abacenters.com and call us at 877-699-1222. Once again, I'm Dr. Bender signing off. Thank you for listening.